Welcome into a new edition of the Kevin and Jason Show. I'm your host, as always, Kevin Masseri, here with co-host Jason Shannon. And always, we have a special guest today, Greg Thompson from Cover One Buffalo, Cover One's other show, one of their other great podcasts. Check that show out. Jason, how you doing today?
Every day we get closer to the regular season, and that means every day I'm just getting more and more excited. We only have one more obstacle to get through, and I'll be watching intently, but we're just trying to get through this. No more injuries, and then we can just get ready for the Jets. I'm excited. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Greg, how are you doing today?
Good, man. Good. Doing really well. Yeah, 10 days can't possibly come fast enough.
10 days.
I am ready for real football.
Yeah, I enjoy Cutdown Day. It's one of my favorite days. I like to see what the roster looks like, what shockers happen, and obviously that's happening in – it could happen Friday, but I think McDermott's and Bean have been taking it to the limit. I believe those old Rex Ryan teams used to cut like right after the game. But from what I've been tracking, it usually comes pretty much as close to the cut down hour as possible. So we'll keep track of that, which is Saturday at 4. So that's something to keep your. Is it Friday or Saturday?
It's Saturday. And there's for as much crap as people give McDermott for going by the book and for being, maybe unnecessarily, quiet and sneaky about things. There is a strategic element to it that I think there's a courtesy you give some veteran players to catch on versus any player that you want to sneak onto the practice squad. There is no benefit of releasing them before the absolute last minute. And even some of them, if you're going to make a claim, you want that 53rd guy to be waiting. And I have a player I'll bring up along those lines later on that it's almost to your benefit to wait until the waiver claim comes through. And then you waive them on Sunday after most other teams have already filled their practice squad. And then you try to sneak that guy on. For this one, I agree with McDermott waiting to the last minute for anybody we want to sneak through waivers.
Are we sending through DeAndre Wesley as like bait? So maybe somebody will jump on that, and then we can sneak some guys around the backside.
I like it.
It's a big bait. I don't know.
I endorse that fully.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that the Bills went and claimed from Indianapolis. He was in camp all last year, and DeAndre Wesley actually getting some news here. So today's show, we're going to talk about some final roster moves that happened today, as well as, maybe some movers and shakers that are going to happen here in this game, anything that we've seen this week. Going to talk about that Minnesota game. Greg's got a formula and a couple of things we'll talk about with how many players that we might think will play, who those guys might be, how many roster spots might be available, and then maybe some final news and nuggets as we go into the final game here, and obviously Cutdown Day. So we're going to try to bring you all those news and nuggets, but we'll start it right here at the top. Jason already brought up Wesley getting the axe. A guy the Bills seem to not ever want to let walk. Whenever they see him on waivers, they claim him. They gave him one of the players they gave a head start to today, releasing him, as well as putting Mike Love on IR with a pec injury. We'll see how long he's on IR, if he is the whole season, if it's an injury settlement at some point, if he comes back after his wait out period. We'll see what happens with Mike Love, as well as news of Stephen Hauschka signing a 2-year, $8 million deal here on his final year of his contract. So the Bills want to lock him up. So those are some final news and nuggets going into the day. But is anyone shocked at I have less so about the Wesley news. I mean, Mike Love was pretty much one of the last guys either on or off your roster. Greg, are you shocked that move happened, or do you see it as a full-term injury IR situation? Do you see it as we're going to settle with this guy, hope he can play later in the season? What do you think the move is here with Mike Love?
All right, so there's two people who would like to talk to you. Logical, realistic Greg assumes that there is an injury and that they just put him on IR because that's the appropriate move, and we're trying to take good care of players and maintain good relationships with agents and with players in general. Conspiracy Greg would like to tell you that I'm pretty sure they just whispered to him that we'd like to have you back next year after Shaq's contract is up, and we'd prefer to do that by just paying you your full salary and letting you hang out and work out and then come back next year. So, it is what it is. It's impossible to know. We have to assume that the NFLPA and their agent would not be not find it acceptable for them to literally stash him and hide him if he didn't have a legitimate injury. So depending on how long that injury is, we'll find out. But yeah, I think you were spot on. Mike Love was my toughest cut on defense. And that I thought he earned a spot with his approach from the exit interview going into the offseason and the work he put in camp in the preseason game. So this obviously solidifies. We had already talked about how Daryl Johnson was a lock anyways, but a lot of people debated would they have to make room for a fifth defensive end, and now that does open up a spot for, you know, whether it's an extra tight end, an extra wide receiver, an extra linebacker. I'm sad to see this happen, but I like the fact that he was put on IR because now we can have the opportunity to bring him back next year.
I mean, Jason, are you in that same camp? Do you think that it's a situation where they had to injure waive him first, and he'll be on waivers maybe after he's healthy? What do you think goes into potentially what seemed to be, at least on the younger rookie / second year players front, being one of the hardest cuts? What do you think the move was? They're doing that here today on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, I think that if you structure it the right way, you know, if he had a 7 to 8 week injury, you could see this benefiting both of them. You know, if it's a short-term injury, you just, you know, trying to get him out there and give him a settlement or whatever and let him go on to the next team. But I think they must have worked out something where they know that they might be losing some defensive ends next year, and they want to keep him around to pay him. And I don't know. I think that I think he probably liked being around there, because if you look at Wesley, they signed him to the practice squad in 17.
Yep.
They signed him to the practice squad in 18. It does seem like eventually, and maybe that's why he got the courtesy, was because, you know, we're going to do this for 3 straight years. We're just going to let you try to find another team. There's millions of teams in the league that need offensive linemen right now. If you look at the 53 breakdowns that they've been giving on like ESPN right now, you can tell that some teams are a little short, even on stars right now. With Mike Love, yeah, I think this was a very strategic. We want you around. We don't think you can make the team this second. The roster doesn't break down this way. And depending on the severity of the injury, it might indicate just how final they think that some defensive positions are right now, that they don't want to wait it out for another few days, that they wanted to make this decision right now. So it's hard to go, you know, it's hard to see right into the brains of the McBean regime. But I do think, you know, I think they're trying to do this for their benefit and for Mike Love's benefit.
Yeah, this one's interesting to me because I think I normally agree with that, but this is going to be a time where I think I can see that point of view, but I think I'm on a different side where I straight up think he's just like we just saw with Corey Carter's cut. He, you know, was unable to participate and thus losing we'll call it a tight battle. And the punter job, I think the same thing here for the fifth, or, you know, they didn't seem to deem need necessary for a fifth defensive end, at least to this point, unless Eddie Yarbrough changes that up. But, you know, they thought he lost his job, maybe due to injury, that he's going to not be able to compete for that fourth. And they said, you know what, you know, we're going to have to put you on IR, and we'll see. Here's where this is the part that differs for me. We'll see what happens when that player gets healthy, because if it's a long-term pec injury, and you're right, if they're, you know, doing right by the player and the agent, everything else, you know, we'll see him here next year, you know, rehabbing and ready to go. But if it's a short-term pec injury, you could see the player get, you know, released on an injury designation settlement here in the next couple of weeks. Thus, he's able to go test the market. And I think if a player goes to get released and goes through the injury physical and isn't able to pass that physical, he has to go to IR first. So it's still tough to know exactly what the exact course of action would be with Mike Love. Is it a stash situation and a bad injury, or is it just straight up they wanted to release him and give him a shot to stick, and he's unable to pass the physical, has to go to IR first? So I'm going to keep track of this, because the Bills can release him with an injury settlement at some point, and then they have to wait a certain amount of time, which is the amount of the agreement plus 3 weeks.
That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah, so if they agree to, say, 3 weeks of pay, he's going to be injured for 3 more weeks. You know, they'd have to wait 6 weeks, and the player can come back to the Bills. So my opinion was he's got to be hurt. I think he's got to be hurt enough to where it's going to affect him for making a roster. Because otherwise, you know, he gets released on release day, call it on Saturday. And you practice squad him. I'm not really that worried that someone would claim Michael Love. And if they do, maybe you lost that risk. But I personally don't think he would have gotten claimed with all the players that will be available. He had a nice offseason for the Bills, but nothing that super flashed like a Darryl Johnson did. So I think you practice squad him. And then guess what? In 3 or 4 weeks, if one of the 4 get hurt, call him right up. On that practice squad. And then he gets his active roster salary at that point. So it just depends on what the Bills were thinking long-term with Mike Love. And I think that'll clear up in the next couple of weeks. Wesley, they obviously wanted to give a shot to. And I did still want to talk about Hauschka a little bit here. I mean, a 2-year, $4 million, essentially 4 a year. We haven't really seen the breakout for this yet, which is, a raise from where he's at now, counting like 3 points.
I think it put him in 9th amongst kickers in the NFL.
Interesting timing to me, because I've struggled a little bit with Hauschka and the way, not just the way the preseason went last year or this year.
Been a hater.
Yeah, and the way
you've been a hater.
Last year, he finished 50%.
He stunk at the end of last year, and it was an injury, and he's growing through some stuff right now.
That's fine. I want to see him get back on track. He made his field goal last week, but I would like to see no more. Like, I don't want a 50% kicker right now. I mean, he did get blasted in that Jets game. A lot of people called for that to be I think that the player ended up getting fined, but it was a dirty hit. I struggle with Stephen Hauschka's timing of the 2-year, $8 million extension. So we'll see if that ends up being a good extension. Greg, I think you're pretty pro Hauschka. Is that fine with you?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% on board with it. I think that Tim Graham's article really was reassuring to what I saw in person, that, when I was able to watch him kick, because he was crushing it, very consistent. I literally never watched him miss of any of the kicks I saw in I was on site 4 different days between the 2 different sessions in St. John Fisher and down at Carolina. So I was reassured that was the case. I think that the only difference between this and, say, Jerry Hughes' timing of an extension was, I think they were hedging a little bit just to make sure, like, hey, I want to make sure this back thing's not real. We have a legitimate alternative in McLaughlin, and that, if you're not right, we're going to have to be ready here. And now they feel confident. Sure. Like I said, I think that in Tim Graham's write-up, it was he had missed 4 kicks between all spring and all summer. He guessed it at about 146 out of 150, but 2 of them were on TV.
Interesting.
And he said, so he was like, hey, I get it. People were, concerned, but no, I'm good. We're fine here. So the fact that they kind of re-up that and double down on it, and that, granted, I think $8 million for a kicker sounds like a lot, but when people realize that, I think he's moving from 16th to 9th in kickers, it's just, that's what he is. He is that kind of range of kicker, and that's what they get paid. So I'm perfectly fine with that, and I do not want to go through what you see other great teams like San Diego and Minnesota and teams like that have cost themselves, and what Cleveland might be going into here, where you have some young head case who has the talent to kick it a mile, but you don't know what's going to get in their head in that clutch moment at the end of the game when you need it. And that's exactly how I would have felt with Chase McLaughlin, and that he could have had it, but I want a guy who's done that for a decade, and that I don't have to worry about them getting inside their own head.
I think I saw that Chicago's brought in 8 kickers this preseason since they missed the playoff game.
That's like us at Palm.
It's not far off.
I just think that if he's a healthy kicker, he's 9th most reliable. That you put him around in that area right now, and I don't really want to mess around with finding somebody else, because it is so mental. And he's experienced, and I just don't really want to deal with it anymore. He looks good on his kickoffs. It's a situation where, again, they got to see 150 kicks over this off season. They weren't all in the preseason, and maybe the preseason ones are more important. You get pressure, whatever. But
I think that's fair.
They have such a huger sample. I don't think huger was the right word to use, but a much larger sample size than we ever get to see, because they just get to see kick after kick after kick. And also, what was the point that I keep forgetting? We could probably move on when I remember it, and then I'll just jump in with it.
I think the technical term is huge-mungus.
The huge-mungus amount of kicks that he gets to do in the off season.
Do you? I think this kind of eliminates this question. It was after this extension. This was going to be my play too, because as much as I've been disappointed in Hauschka over the course of the end of last year and start this preseason in terms of gameplay. Once again, I'm not logging each of his kicks, though. You've mentioned a big point to me that the most important kicks were where he was 50% to end last year and to start this year, although this year's season hasn't started. So all we can go off of is preseason games. And I think with rushing and with your actual special teams unit and in game setting, that's where you went 50%. But they're not worried about it. They signed him to an extension. The thing for me is Chase McLaughlin. I was originally not convinced that it's a waste to put him on the practice squad because you never know a situation where you might call him up. Injury can happen. I think he's been decent enough when teams need kickers that you could use a practice squad. I've seen this happen. I forget if it was New England where kickers and punters on the practice squad is becoming a real thing.
They've done it before, and I mean, the thing that I have doubts about is the fact that there's probably still 25 kickers getting cut next week. I don't know how many are carrying 2 right now, but I know it's probably a good portion of the league, even if it's just to take some weight off of, teams starting kickers. But
you asked me 3 hours ago, I would have said 100%.
Yeah, I would say most of them.
The extension, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I mean, Corey Carter was on the Bills practice squad for a lot of 2017. So
no, 100%. But at that point, we had a kicker on a 1-year rookie deal with no
right.
long term there. So the benefit of McLaughlin long term, they didn't just give Hauschka that money to then cut it and eat the dead cap. Hauschka's here for multiple additional years, so I think it's valid, and I could see us picking up a punter to put on the practice squad, or the other way around, claiming a waived punter or signing Ryan Allen, pretty please, and then keeping Bojorquez on the practice squad, or the same thing, bringing back Carter onto the practice squad. I could see that more so than McLaughlin, even if in a vacuum, McLaughlin's better at his job than Bojorquez is at his.
Yeah, I just have a tough time believing that we had the kicker that was better than the other 25 that are getting cut this week. You can really just pick up a guy and start kicking them, and maybe, I don't know, maybe we do have the special one, but I feel I'd take my chances with the other 25 that are going to be just sitting out there on the street than having to use a practice squad spot on McLaughlin for the rest of the year.
And I just found the numbers. I know you looked at it earlier. Just a quick comment on Mike Love. He gets, by staying on injured reserve, he gets $393,000 versus the roughly $190,000 you get by a full season practice squad player. So that's another nod to him and his agent that if there is any length for the injury, that hey, we'll take care of you financially versus trying to give him a shot to try to hang on somewhere else, but maybe not make the roster. So I think that's a little bit of a nod to him too as well.
Yeah, I think there's definitely financial implications of that. I think that's a legitimate factor that, hey, what are you complaining about if you're going to make your full salary? That's like playing a whole year. And then, when the opportunity next year might be a little grander to make the roster, you're still here. You've been in the system. So there's definitely, like you said, could be a way to look at Mike Love. And I think that it's simple. I mean, New England was going to put Bojorquez on their practice squad. They were upset we claimed him. They actually didn't punt him in the preseason. Remember that whole weird fiasco?
It was my favorite part about him being on
punter hiding. Yeah.
The fact that we stole him, the fact that we directly stole him from Bill Belichick is like 97% of the reason I like him.
Yeah, no, they stole him from him, and they definitely punter hit him. He was a guy that they, similarly to, not literally like Hauschka, but where he was very good in practice and then didn't need to show him in the preseason at all, or care what he did in preseason, more importantly. So I don't know that I don't know if punter, I'd have to really check the punter market. I don't have my, Shane's, player pro personnel department's punter list, but I don't know that punter's great because teams seem to be struggling to find them right now. So, I mean, the Bills certainly have been in a black hole at punter, so I don't know what that means. But I don't even know that he would go through to the practice, like he would make it to the practice. I could be wrong. I'm not really sure. But kicker, I still think that you can, and you have a backup plan at quarterback. You have a backup plan at most positions or all positions except kicker. So now it's less about does Steven Hauschka, is he going to kick 50%? It's more about what if he gets blasted again or something happens or that residual shows up at some point this season. You have a guy ready to go who's been on in your organization, who's been on your special teams units, who knows kickoffs, who knows, he's been around everybody. You can call him up on a Saturday right before 4 p.m. or whatever the cutoff is to kick that day or whatever. I think that a backup plan is never a bad thing, especially, when you just, as an insurance policy for a guy you just, paid a lot of money for. So that's kind of my argument, not just, is he going to hit 50%?
I just think that if that does happen, if really is the plan, if the plan is like, hey, we really need a kicker on the practice squad, it could easily be anybody else in the league.
Sure.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't know if McLaughlin's anything special. He did look like he had a pretty good boot, but...
Okay. And in fairness, if he is anything remotely special, he's going to get claimed because there's too many kicker-hungry teams.
Yeah, so I guess there's...
that window of where he is that good, nobody else knows he's that good, and we can stash him long enough for it to matter, I think is just a really small target.
Yeah, it could be. And the bigger thing is, though he might not be claimable, maybe he's not the best kicker cut on Saturday, is he a kicker that is just minimal to the issue that's going to happen, which is if he's cut, and is he that much worse than maybe the best kicker that was cut? I don't know. So that's something that we're going to have to monitor.
By the way, Minnesota's right now a team that's deciding on a kicker right now. They just traded a 25th round pick for Baltimore's backup kicker, Kaiir Vedvik, a couple of weeks ago, and they're already talking about cutting him. So,
man, why couldn't we get a 25th?
He missed 2 kicks last week, and I think Dan Bailey's still on the roster.
And let's use that as an example. He is exactly what I mean about a McLaughlin, about another guy. I am completely fine if for the rest of my adult life, the Bills never have a rookie kicker ever.
Okay.
I don't think you can even know what their mental fortitude is going into those clutch moments until they're in those clutch moments. And I don't want to find that out in real time.
Okay.
When it's happening and matters. I would always rather be paying a veteran that I've seen do it.
Man.
Yeah, you saw it with Aguayo, and almost any kicker who's been drafted high hasn't been worth it.
Unbelievably talented guys who crush the ball, and it's just you don't know what's between the ears.
Yep, it's true, man.
But yeah, that's an extended period of kicker talk.
Right. You get me on a pod, and there's going to be more kicker and punter talk than should ever be necessary. You have the rest of this thing. I mean, you're talking about the Snorris Perrys, Duke Williams, Isaiah McKenzie, Teller, Bates, Bodeger, Deion Lacey, Stanford, Alexander, Neal, Marlowe, these guys. Greg, anything movers or shakers there at that bubble list? Does this pretty much solidify a 7th receiver? What's the movers and shakers from going into this game tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, a couple people on Twitter asked me, did the DeAndre Wesley thing help Ryan Bates? I said, I mean, I guess it didn't hurt, but I didn't have DeAndre Wesley on par competing with Bates already. And I had Bates kind of in that bubble zone as right there, the 52nd, 53rd guy. If they go 9 offensive linemen, he's the guy. So I don't think it terribly helps him, but, I guess it's one less guy to compete with. Same idea. Darryl Johnson was already a mortal lock for this roster. I don't think Mike Love's IR changed that, but it did make an opening for someone else. I've always been on the team of the 7th linebacker over a 7th wide receiver. The reason I lean there is kind of a combination of things with I don't think Voshon Joseph is ready to contribute to an NFL roster. I also think he's too good of a prospect from a 5th-round pick to try to hide him on waivers. So I'd rather have 6 actual functional game day linebackers and let him be a game day inactive that you kind of stash, like what Connor McDermott used to be almost, where they saw him as a prospect, didn't think they could expose him to waivers, so they just kept him as a game day inactive stash and then went through the season. I would rather do that than a 7th wide receiver who also would be a game day inactive. So even if Isaiah McKenzie's technically a better football player today than Voshon Joseph, I'd rather go that route to be able to stash him. So I guess that's where I see the opening, but I fully know that there is a scenario where it's a 7th wide receiver, and this was the crack that Isaiah McKenzie or Ray or Duke Williams needed to make the roster in addition to the 6 guys. So I'd say those are the names that are benefiting from this.
Right. Do you have – so you have Yeldon over Perry. You have Duke Williams over McKenzie. You have Teller on the roster and Bates on the roster, right?
I do, as of today. Yeah, cool. So my next guy would be Isaiah McKenzie. So if this opened up a spot for someone, that would be there. But
7 linebackers, 7 receivers.
No, it would be one or the other. So right now I would go with, I guess technically you'd call it Maurice Alexander over Isaiah McKenzie, but I could totally see that flipping and that they go that route. Or when I hinted at it earlier, the one guy I would try to be sneaky with, let's say we claim a punter off the roster from someone else. I think they ride through and wait, let that waiver claim go through, and then on Sunday you waive Voshon Joseph after the rest of the teams have mainly filled their practice squad, and then you could maybe try to sneak him on the practice squad. I still don't think you can. I think that you have to put him on the active roster because he's just too high of a prospect to do that. But I looked it up. It's actually only 92% of the 5th round picks make it to their opening roster. So 8% is probably more than what people think. And that means that there's actually 2 5th rounders every year who don't make the opening roster.
Interesting. Jason, your final names that I've mentioned here in this segment. You have 7 receivers, right? You have Yeldon, I know.
Sure do.
6 linebackers? Where are you? 8 linebackers?
Yeah,
or are you low?
I was at 6 linebackers. Okay. Where was I on lineman? I was in line with MLJ this morning.
Okay.
I thought that Deion Lacey might sneak away onto the team just based on performance. I really don't know what to think about Mo Alexander. I can only really go off of what they think of him, and they seem to like him for those.
He's running on more first-team special teams units than Deion Lacey, so I think Lacey flashes more, but the team is showing their hand, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just thought he improved how he plays linebacker more than anything over the last couple of weeks. I think one interesting thing that people sometimes forget about, I mean, not only can the team sometimes the team will cut over 53 and you're not going to just get the 53 best guys from this team. But like in terms of what you want to do as a team, like I think the 2 priorities are be ready for the Jets and protect players who have real futures for this team.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you're going to only have 7 offense, I mean, it might be a crazy thought, but if you're going to only play 7 offensive linemen in week 1, maybe you go down to that for week 1 and you go to the waiver after that, or you're really disillusioned with Perry and Yeldon and you just don't think they're going to help you immediately. Maybe you do that for a week and you hold 3 running backs and then you go and find your guy later. You know, the roster is such a moving thing. And if you look at week-to-week rosters for this team, you'll find crazy stuff like 4 receivers 1 week or, you know, whatever. I'm not saying that lines up with how the team looks right now, but I really think that you can fudge with those numbers, even if you're just trying to be ready for the Jets and the Giants or whatever. And you know that down the line, maybe you're going to be able to find somebody. You know, the roster isn't going to always look like the Madden roster minimums that they give you all the time. So, you know, in the secondary, I think the fact that Neal can go back and forth is interesting. I just think there's a lot of versatility in some of these players. And even keeping a guy like Bates, who supposedly can play 5 positions, maybe makes an extra lineman expendable. So, I mean, that's just really talking in real generalities. I'm getting more and more – I didn't think they would do it. I'm getting more and more convinced into maybe 7 receivers being a possibility just based on that sort of talent perspective. I can tell you right now that, like, the one disappointment I would have is if Ray McLeod makes the team, because now we're talking about losing out on McKenzie and or Williams, and just I don't know, the preseason just not mattering at all
for the practice squad. And I mean, I'm team 6 linebacker guy. I think you got to get something out of Voshon at some point. It doesn't need to be week 1. I think you need to get something out of him with the great, you're going to have Stanford and Thompson for special teams, and they both can present backup linebackers and active on game day. They've only ever kept 6, so the precedent's there too. I'm on board with it. I think you keep, if you have to stash Voshon, in Corey Thompson and Julian Stanford are your guys. I think you leave Maurice Alexander out there if you ever need to go grab him. If something happens or Corey Thompson or Stanford or starter goes down. And then plus, you have a pretty solid, you're not in base D the whole game. So, we'll see. I think you can activate Voshon and see what happens on special teams, or inactivate him and use the line and use that spot elsewhere on special teams. So, did want to take a quick time to mention Cover One and their great app. Get out there and download that for push notifications on all of our shows. Cover One Buffalo, our show here, Kevin and Jason show, as well as Slack group, and a lot of great benefits there. So get out there and check out that Cover One app, as this show is presented by Cover One. And finally, wanted to get in the segment of tomorrow's game. So there is a game tomorrow, fourth preseason game, a pretty highly contested argument whether the preseason needs to exist for 4 games, 3 games, 2 games. Jason and I got into that last episode on our show. But meanwhile, the fourth preseason game is still a thing, and it is tomorrow against Minnesota, usually Detroit. They played that in game 3. But there's got to be a good amount of players. By good, I mean at least a few players playing that will be on the roster, as well as maybe a couple of spots that are actually being played for. Maybe they're looking for some final flashes. I know, Greg, you've had some numbers. You've had some different theories on this. What have you found when it comes to this fourth preseason game?
Well, so I think you take through a couple different things here, just in the general math of what makes up a roster. So with the new rules for the cut down, you don't get down to there. You don't do multiple cuts. It used to be from 91 down to 75, and then, incrementally down to the final stage. So now it's all the way down at once. So you have 91 guys on the current roster. We have 2 of them that we found out about today. So we're at 89. Of those, you need 46 on the game day roster to be able to run a successful team. And I don't think they're going to deviate a ton from that. Maybe 1 or 2 people, but you need that many just to be able to functionally run a football team. And McDermott is a very process guy. So my guess is that they're going to run with 46. So that leaves you with 43 positions that you can give guys a healthy scratch as a roster lock, knowing that, hey, these 43 guys are in stone and we can give them a break and not have to run that in there. So let's go with that logic. That means that 46 are going to play, 43 are going to get a healthy scratch. That means that 10 of the guys playing on Thursday night, even if some are limited reps, are going to be on the game day roster. So I think that's 10 is probably more than what people think. I think a lot of people do it as a throwaway, that it's just nobody matters and it doesn't have any value. I think there's still some battles. And now maybe that only means that it's 13 or 14 guys fighting for those 10 spots. I don't think there's 20 guys all that have a legit chance to make it. But of those 10 guys who are going to be on the roster, I think only 6 or 7 of them are already decided. I think there's a handful that could be. So, a handful of those might be some rookies that I think it makes sense for Jaquan Johnson to dress and play a little bit. I think you get the same thing maybe Daryl Johnson gets a couple reps. Voshon Joseph is going to play. I don't know about Ed Oliver. I don't know about Cody Ford. Maybe Devin Singletary dresses. I wouldn't be shocked if he sits. But who sits also is telling. So if going into that game, we see them give a healthy scratch to TJ Yeldon, if we see them give a healthy scratch to Captain Munnerlyn, if we see them give a healthy scratch to Julian Stanford, if we see them give a healthy scratch to Isaiah McKenzie, any guy that we currently see as a debatable bubble guy, I don't think that any of those 43 healthy scratches are going to be guys who then get cut. That if they're at all in the risk of getting or not getting a roster spot, they're going to let the guy fight for it to be out there and to be able to do that. They're not going to rest a guy and cut him. So if we see any bubble guy get a healthy scratch on Thursday, that would be very telling to me. So I think there's maybe a little bit more to watch tomorrow night than what fans think. It's still nothing special. Going undefeated, I guess, is fun. It doesn't actually matter at all, but I guess it's kind of fun that we've never done.
Thing, right?
Yeah, we've never done it before. So I'm open to rooting for it. I'm a degenerate, so I'm going to watch the whole game anyways. So I might as well watch a win. But yeah, just some math that I looked at there. So I think that we're going to see 46 guys play tomorrow. 10 that are going to make the roster, maybe 13 or 14 that have a chance to, and I'm going to be very closely watching who's a healthy scratch.
Jason, so following those numbers, let's say it's something similar to that, 10 positions, maybe 3 to 5 flex players, 13 to 15 people competing for those. But regardless of what that is, who are some names that you think could actually play onto the roster? What are some of those names? The 1 or 2, 3 players that could do something like with this Tyree Jackson game and actually make this roster. Do you have a name or two? What out of the 10 players playing, who do you think could play their way onto the roster?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think about it as like it's Mike Love versus Daryl Johnson. But I think a lot of it's going to come down to who plays. They might have a 50 or 51 man roster, and they're making this decision over whether we're going to keep this 7th receiver, whether we're going to keep this 9th lineman, or 5th defensive end for Eddie Yarbrough. I think in this case, it'll be interesting. I looked in the history of 4th preseason games, and it seems like every year you get some bubble wide receiver going wire to wire in the game. I saw a few Des Lewis 7-catch games. In the past, there was a big Jarrett Boykin game, and a lot of those guys, if you can't tell, didn't really end up making the team. But you could see a situation where I think Duke Williams is probably going to play a really long time and make that decision of, do we really need to keep this guy as a 7th wide receiver? McKenzie could be the case, even though it's so weird because I could see them doing it with Foster or McKenzie. But at the same time, the play counts, those must be the strangest guys that I can think of in terms of play counts the last couple of weeks, with McKenzie playing one off of offensive play in week 3, and I believe in week 2 as well. Foster only played one offensive play in week 3, though he played a ton of special teams, so maybe they're trying to groom him for that position. So I don't really know what to think about that, because if those guys were guys that were fighting for the team, you'd figure they would get more run to sort of defend their positions or try to make their way onto the team as offensive players.
Has Duke been getting special team snaps? Does anyone know?
I don't know if Greg's got the answer to that.
Duke Williams?
Yeah.
Yes, he has.
He has? Okay.
Yeah, not a ton. I think that it was the highest guy so far. Joe Marino ran through all the numbers off the PFF advanced stats. The highest guys were in the mid-30s, 34, 35, 36, and I think he had like 21. So that would mean to me that he's on 2 of the 5 units, 3 of the 5 units. But yes, he is getting some special teams run.
Okay, that's good. So with Duke Williams getting some special teams run, I think that he does something specifically different than the other receivers, not even in his ability to go up and get the ball, and his ability, great run blocker, physical, does a lot of things well, can almost give you a athletic tight end almost, while they have some tight end injuries. So I think I think he's more of a quote unquote on the roster than maybe McKenzie is, even though I like Isaiah McKenzie. So we're going to have to see. I think McKenzie gets claimed. I think he's still in claimable roster status. I know he's on the board. He was claimed by the Bills last year. I think McKenzie does not make it through the cuts. If he's cut, meaning he will go to another roster, you can't just sneak him. Can't try to Corey Bajorka as him and hope he's still there, if you get an injury in free agency. So I don't know.
And it's hard because I've had this debate a lot. Everybody can pray for me. I joined Reddit. I had never done it before.
Did Eric get you on there?
He did. It's his fault. And I've been arguing with people for like 36 straight hours now. But one of the big ones is Duke Williams versus Isaiah McKenzie. And in my brain, that in a vacuum, that argument, I think Isaiah McKenzie might be a little bit better.
Yep.
But not so much better that it matters that all the things Isaiah McKenzie is good at, we have other people who are better at it. Andre Roberts is a better Andre Roberts is a better returner. Cole Beasley is a better slot receiver. John Brown's a better deep threat. All the things that Duke Williams is good at, we don't have anybody else that's good at those things or as good as him at them. I think that he is right there with Zay as our best run blocking guy. I think that he might be our best coverage special teams guy. He's probably our best contested catch, physicality guy. I think that there's some things that he brings that the other guys don't bring. So even though if you really push me for it, I think that Isaiah McKenzie is a little bit better NFL receiver. I think that Duke fits the needs of what we have and that you're constructing a roster, not doing a one-on-one contest.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%. I think he does something better. And I think Jason's right on the fact that Isaiah McKenzie, it's not a Isaiah McKenzie, Duke Williams one-on-one roster battle. Isaiah McKenzie is going to compete against, does he do enough for the team at his position and what he does more than Wyatt Teller or Ryan Bates or the seventh linebacker? I mean, I think that's, kind of more of the battle. And I think these linemen are, to kind of answer my own question, these linemen are who can make this roster. So, does Wyatt Teller play tomorrow? If he doesn't, maybe that's a sign that he's on the roster. If he does,
that would be a full-on sign. I think
if he does, I think him or Ryan Bates or Jaron Jones, because if they letting go Wesley, I could see a sneaky tackle make the roster. I don't think that's, like Greg mentioned, the position we might claim someone at. I could see them keeping Jaron Jones through the first set of cuts until they could sign someone, then hopefully waive him to go to the practice squad. That could be the exact position that they do it at.
I could see that.
So I don't think line's as set as it seems. And they could get sneaky on the offensive line across, I don't think guard, but maybe they do. But I think they could specifically get sneaky at tackle with keeping a Jaron Jones on the initial roster. And if they don't get the claims they want, maybe he sticks on the inactive list. And they do let a guy like Ryan Bates go to practice squad. He was an undrafted free agent. The Bills did trade for him, but that doesn't mean that he'd have a value getting claimed on a 53-man roster. Maybe he'd be one of their priority practice squad guys that once he develops a tiny bit more, they'll bring up. But I think they like Ryan Bates a lot. He's another name that I think can make the roster tomorrow. Ryan Bates, Wyatt Teller can make the roster. Maybe Jaron Jones can make the roster tomorrow. I don't really see a ton else. I think they've already have their mind up what they're going to do with those receivers. I don't know if they're going to be watching a ton at it tomorrow.
Kevin, Conspiracy Greg would like to speak with you real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Conspiracy Greg.
The Buffalo Bills official Twitter account just sent out a message from Duke Williams about how not too many could make it out of my shoes if they had to take the route I took. But at the end of the day, it's been great. It's been a great learning process. Why Duke Williams is prepared to fight for a roster spot in the final preseason game. You can't convince me that they send out that tweet with a big picture of Duke Williams for a guy that they don't plan on keeping.
Jason?
I read into this all the time. I feel like I've been burned on it before.
I don't think there's media team.
I don't think there's any connection. I've known a few social media teams. I'm not sure that there's any connection.
Oh yeah, for as tight as they are on no leaks, there's no way that they just whisper to the social media guys who's going to make it. But
let's do a puff piece on Duke.
I love a good conspiracy.
Yeah, but it's a puff piece. They know that he's making the roster. They want to puff it up.
See, you see.
I know. No, I want to believe that, but I feel like I've done this in other years and been burned. I don't want to read it.
It's at least somewhat of a sign that
I'm not reading into what some social media intern did for the Bills.
But do you see a puff piece on equally? Do you see a Victor Bolden puff piece right now? The journey of Victor Bolden?
Well, it's probably not that interesting.
On a separate note, on a serious note, I think they do like his story. I think he's the kind of guy that McDermott would love to have on this roster to point to as, look, anybody can make this happen. We're going to give the best guy who earns it the roster spot. I don't think that gets him a roster spot. I think he still has to do that. But I think there's a piece of Sean McDermott that would love to have that story to point at.
And I think that he's done enough on top of the story. That's, I guess, the opinion, too. He does a lot of things decent. I think he's one of our best blocking receivers.
He mauled people against Detroit. It was.
I think that's what will make the roster for himself.
I don't disagree at all. I think that's the kind of thing that McDermott loves.
You can have him active on game day because of that too.
I think that his best chance of making the team is the fact that they see that there is even a slight chance that this guy could be a starting outside receiver for the team sometime in the next year or two.
Yeah, well, I think those 20 special team snaps are not an accident either.
No, I think they're trying to find
Yeldon doing some.
Find a spot for him. But I think if you look at years past, and maybe Duke Williams is more talented than those guys, but if you look back at Des Lewis or Brandon Riley, guys that probably were one of the best 5 or 6 receivers on the team, those were guys that didn't really have the special teams chops and probably didn't have a route to eventually being a starting outside receiver and having that sort of talent in the future.
Right.
We don't just keep we don't just keep the best 5 guys. Can I bring up a quick point before we forget about it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Minnesota's going to be interested in this game right now. After Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, their receivers are projected to be Chad Beebe, who's done nothing in the NFL and has had a bad preseason, but is slotted in to be the starting slot receiver. Olabisi Johnson, who's a 7th-round pick this year, and a guy named Brandon Zylstra, who I believe has 3 catches, and they're cutting Laquan Treadwell. So they might be scouting our team for this game, not to mention that they just traded for a kicker, and all reports are saying they're planning on cutting him. So this might be a bigger Viking scouting game than Bill's scouting game.
No, I think that for all the crazy Twitter characters that have been wasted on the Jadeveon Clowney or Trent Williams trade market, or LaShawn McCoy being traded away, or whatever people talk about, I do think that there is some back end roster talent, especially in our secondary and in the wide receiver group, that I definitely could see Brandon Beane pulling 1 or 2 small trades that, hey, Isaiah McKenzie is better than most of the receivers that are going to get waived. If you have a late waiver priority and you're not going to get him, give us a conditional 6th-round pick. And if he makes your roster, you get it. If he doesn't make the roster, you give us a 7th. I think he could have that kind of deal very easily.
Yeah, don't go down Kevin's rabbit hole of 100% I think a receiver's getting traded. That's my rabbit hole. I've said it on the Jerry Sullivan show. I've said it on a few other places. I am convinced that they move, and it's just like Mike Love. It becomes a little bit more clear when they move one of these guys we've talked about on this show and many other shows across Bill's podcast world. What's interesting to me, okay, I want to play a real quick game of yes or no. Does Zay Jones play tomorrow?
No.
Double no. Okay, he's playing in deep in the third last game, so double no.
He also started.
Okay.
He started that game, and now it's weird. It's not any less weird that he played into the third and maybe technically the fourth. He was playing wide receiver with Tyree Jackson at quarterback. That's weird, but he also started the game.
Why do we think
he was in the starting unit? Because he hadn't got any targets.
Okay.
I think they wanted to give him some confidence to get him the ball, just because in pure happenstance, he hadn't got any targets from Josh, and they wanted him to get the ball a couple times just to feel good going into the season. That's all I can tell myself. That's pure speculation, but at least that's a story.
I think it's weird, but at the same time, either he's going to make this team and factor into the top 3 where you don't want to play him, or you're trying to trade him, I guess, and then you don't want him to get hurt. And nothing he's going to do in this 4th preseason game is going to mean anything for his trade value. So I'm going firm no. If he plays, I mean, they're doghousing him or something.
If he plays, what does that mean? How about that? I guess that's one question.
I don't know. That they're not happy with him and they're trying to ramp him up for the season.
Okay.
If he plays, I think that it's the Sammy Watkins treatment. If he plays and gets 3 targets in the first drive, I do think you can read into that.
It's the 4th preseason game, though. Like, who's reading into that?
Minnesota, the team on the other sideline.
Your own question.
Seriously,
prefaced this.
He's not even going to.
So because
he's their third receiver easily.
He 100% would be Minnesota's starting slot receiver.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. I just think that when Minnesota watches it and he beats up on Isaiah Wharton and Duke Thomas and Nate Metters, that
you made up those names. Stop it.
They're on a roster or on a depth chart somewhere. Holton Hill's probably still playing. Maybe you just try to get him killed. I don't know.
You're hating on Chris Boyd, 7th round pick. I know.
Chris Boyd right now on the 53 on ESPN right now says that they will not make the team, even though I was a Chris Boyd fan going into the draft.
Are they going to play? They're probably not going to play McKenzie, right?
Well, now I do think the guys competing for that 6th receiver spot, I do think that we see Duke Williams
and McKenzie,
and Isaiah McKenzie, and I still count Ray McLeod, even though I don't think he's actually competing. I do think that we see all three of them dress. Now, I think maybe we can read in a little bit into how much each of them plays. And if, Isaiah McKenzie plays the first series and sits, or Duke Williams plays the first series and sits, and then the other one plays longer into the game, I do think that's a little bit of a tell.
I'm excited for David Sills to go for 120 and then listen to WGR afterwards.
I know.
That's what I'm excited for.
If David Sills goes for 7 catches for 120 and Christian Wade gets 15 carries for like 135 yards, the internet will melt down.
I mean, it's just going to explode. I can't believe how good Minnesota's first team defense is, though. It's back to being pretty good. But they're going to play. Are they going to play Mike Hughes, you think? Mackenzie Alexander? Do you think we're going to see any of those guys?
Same way that you got to think every NFL team.
3rd and 4th corners.
I think Hughes is hurt anyways, but.
Is he?
Every NFL team's going to sit the same 40 to 45 guys.
You're not factoring the Mike Zimmer preseason.
Yeah.
Mike Zimmer.
Sending the blitzes.
Oh, my God. That guy tries to win preseason games. His preseason record's got to be like 800. He's got to be like an 800 winning percent.
I think we're going to see a lot of the scrubs, and we're going to see Kyle Sloter and Jake Browning throw 30 yards away from their receivers.
No Sean Mannion?
Sean Mannion seems pretty firmly on the team. I don't even think we're going to see Alexander Madison,
he's my guy.
the 4th president. We're going to see some Amir Abdullah, some Mike Boone. Kyle Sloter, Jake Browning, probably like Laquan Treadwell for a 1st-round pick. He'll be getting the punishment treatment, probably trying to make the
over
team.
There, right?
So I don't know. He's a big physical receiver.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what he brings. The Dan Bailey, Kaiir Vedvik battle.
Yeah, it's still going.
It's still a thing.
This feels like we need to end the podcast.
There cannot be a 2nd round of kicker talk.
No,
especially opposing kicker talk.
I just wanted to preview the Vikings game because I don't think anyone else did it. I think I like watching other teams' rosters, especially teams we don't.
There's a outside linebacker on their team named Greer Martini.
It's a good name. See, exactly.
Greer Martini.
Exactly worth the conversation here. But lastly in Bills land, final notes and nuggets I want to get to. Any practice squad guys you're more importantly for tomorrow you're watching for? Are we thinking Terrell Dodson's on the practice squad, Abraham Wallace, and one of these tight ends? I don't know the difference. Nate Becker?
Nate Becker. Yeah.
Okay. Any linemen?
Jason Kroom's eligible for practice squad.
I could see that. Definitely. Can completely see that happen. He could be a guy. Do you think they get goofy with him where they might keep him as the waiver guy that they'll try to sneak or no? Do you think they'll just call him?
Because nobody's going to sign him?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I guess it could be anyone. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say it would be a guy, if they're literally keeping a fake 53rd guy until their waiver goes through, it would be one of those try hard. It would be a try hard guy that they wanted to reward, and it would be Ray McLeod or Dean Marlowe, one of those types. Eddie Yarborough, whatever.
Eddie Yarborough, I could see. Jason, any practice squad guys you're watching tomorrow? Sills. Who do you like from the receiver group to go on the squad? Sills, Cam Phillips, Nick Easley.
I thought Nick Easley was looking good until they really haven't played him lately, and so he'll probably get some run here. Sills is always a possibility, just considering their enthusiasm to go get him, but obviously he hasn't shown really anything.
You think Ray gets claimed?
No.
If not, I think he's a lock for the practice squad.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he's been spoken glowingly of and has gotten every opportunity.
He's definitively above Sills and Easley.
Yeah.
How about defenders that you guys? I mean, Terrell Dodson's the guy for me.
Dodson, I think, is really obvious just because I think they would have cut him like immediately
Cam
if
Lewis.
they didn't see it.
Yeah, Cam Lewis.
I think Cam Lewis is a lock. I think Dodson's a lock. I did think Mike Love was up until this, so Maybe Jeff Holland is, because none of the defensive tackles are eligible. Roderick Young, Kyle Pecco, and Latarius Walton are not eligible. Jeff Holland, I guess. Ryan Lewis again, I guess. That makes it a little bit weird. I'm not even 100% who I would put on there. I didn't bring it up earlier when we were talking about the offensive linemen, but that was kind of a theory I threw out to Marcel when he was on the show, going through the same way that a lot of teams keep a third quarterback as the QB3, but on the practice squad. I think you could kind of do that as your ninth offensive lineman and just keep 8, and then just put, Jaron Jones and Ike Bacher and Demetrius Rainey all on the practice squad. And then if you need one, you do the shell game stuff in game that, hey, for a quarter and a half, we need to kick forward out to tackle and put in Spencer Long, and then we'll figure it out for the rest of the game. And then during the week, now you activate Jaron Jones because you had him there, but you're not going to waste a 53-man roster spot on him. So I could see that. And I also don't think it's crazy that they could sneak Ryan Bates through, but the same idea as I talked about with Voshon Joseph, he'd be a sneaky one that you'd wait until teams filled up their practice squad, and then you try to sneak in Bates.
I think Bates is a guy with this regime specifically likes and wants to work with, but does another team notice the Bills really liking him, and will he sneak? He would be tough for me to see get claimed. But he's versatile lineman and wouldn't shock me. So you're right. They might have to stash him, but I think that's a good idea. I think they're working on Bates. If they're going to inactivate him anyways, do they try to sneak him through and have that, ninth guy on the practice squad? I think that's a good debate. I think they're going to have a good practice squad. Usually, sometimes we saw McDermott and right when Bean first started, they only kept 5 of their initial. Everyone predicts 10 players. Last year was 8. Do you think 10, or do you think that 8's the number and you get 2 other practice squad guys that you rotate out?
I think 8 sounds about right. Okay. They're scouting the whole league. They weren't able to obtain every single guy that they wanted to bring into.
Look at Ryan Bates, right?
And especially with the fact that they were only able to sign 3 guys, right? In your initial undrafted free agent, because they had really prioritized a couple guys, I think.
They ran out of signing bonus money. Yep.
Dodson and et cetera. So,
okay.
I think they'll probably keep a decent amount. I don't think they're going to cut it for where it's going to be 3 or 3 to 5, but I think that we'll still be looking around the league for sure. They always are. They're active. And
Christian Wade, where does he? We're going to wrap this up with Christian Wade. Where does he go as Saturday approaches? Is he on the Bills exempt? Bills 10-man, another team's 10-man practice squad. What do we think, Greg?
Bills exception.
You're going Bills exception. Okay.
He's the only one that I think there is a non-zero chance that he could be a healthy scratch tomorrow, and that fans will think it's because he's making the 53, but it's actually he's flashed just enough that they're going to try to Bajorquez him and hide it and make sure that he only goes on the exception list and not the active 10-man. Yeah. That there's a non-zero chance that if he gets scratched tomorrow, that's why.
Jason?
Yeah, there's no way he's making the team.
Okay,
so
fine.
But I don't know. I've kind of convinced myself into him being on the regular practice squad, because I think even when the quotes that we got with him through the week kind of reminded me that, part of the motivation is the motivation to play eventually and to get on the field. And maybe if we're in a bad situation, that's somebody you try to play in week 15 or 16. I'm not saying where you need a guy in a big moment, but if things are really dwindling down, they might want to actually see him on a field. And I don't know that the 10th practice squad spot is that important. It's reasonably important. I think they could just as easily make him exempt, but I could see the benefit in both of those for sure.
Yeah, I'm purely being greedy. There's no actual tangible benefit to making sure, and if honestly just a reward to him,
exactly,
that if you think it's a little bit of a nod to say, hey, you want to know what, man, you did better than just some gimmick 11th exception gimme. We're going to put you on the the real practice squad because you earned it. I think that's a good story too. So I could see McDermott spinning that.
Right, well. Exactly. If you're conspiracy Greg and you think that, Mike Love is going to get stashed, I have a hard time believing you wouldn't put Christian Wade on the regular 10-man, right?
Sure. No, I think it's very fair.
And if someone's going to pluck him and let him play on a roster, I mean, you can't.
God bless him.
Go ahead. There might be a team that'll help.
Yeah. Do I want to be able to snag Ray McLeod and Isaiah McKenzie and Jason Kroom and Wyatt Teller and Mike Love and Voshon Joseph and Cam Lewis and Abraham Wallace all on the practice squad? Yes. Am I going to be upset when half of those guys get claimed by other teams because they deserve to be in an NFL roster? No, God bless them.
Exactly.
They deserve to go earn their living. So I would hope that we'd be able to find something, but
And I think half those guys are more valuable to the Bills. So maybe it's not that far. Maybe outside of like a McKenzie and a couple of those, a name or two you just mentioned, I think that's still possible that there's 1,000 guys getting cut plus. I mean, I think it's possible that they might be more valuable to us in our practice squad than potentially another team. So we'll see how that happens. Maybe it's more the veteran guys, the McKenzies of the world would be the ones we're going to lose or I mean, hey, we lost Ike Butker last year to Kansas City. So they love that guy. So he's one that maybe he's been kicked out of different positions. He can play, might be a guy that might make that sneaky last roster spot. So I'm going to watch a lot on the offensive line tomorrow, guys. But it's been a rock solid show. We had a lot from, talking about these final roster spots to the game tomorrow and a couple of other exceptions and rules and roster nuggets. Greg, really appreciate you coming on here. Obviously check out his show, Cover One Buffalo. Tell our, users and followers where they can find you.
Yeah, come on over. Find me on Twitter at Greg Thompsett, GregTompsett. Having fun on the Cover One Buffalo podcast. It is totally worth tolerating Aaron to get to listen to me. So come on over, give us a shot. But no, we have a lot of fun and appreciate you guys having me on tonight. It was great.
Anytime, man. We'll have you back soon. We'll have you back some point, maybe in the next couple weeks or so, to talk about maybe week one or some of the roster stuff. But it's been a great one from the Kevin and Jason show. I'm Kevin. And that's Jason.
Thanks, guys.